What's going on, everyone? In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can start online book arbitrage or Amazon book flipping if you're on a budget and you're a beginner. If you're new to the channel, my name is Joji Davenport. I was formerly a high school teacher, but I actually retired because flipping books in Amazon was really profitable, and now I'm just trying to give back and help you all get there as well. Okay, so the first thing that you have to understand is that if you're going to actually start buying books on Amazon and reselling them on Amazon, that you're actually going to have to spend a lot more money than you're used to spending. If you go to a thrift store, you're probably used to spending $1 or $2 to buy just one book, and really those products are quite cheap. But really what isn't cheap is the time that it takes to go get them, right? You have to sit in traffic, you have to drive, you have to go point A to point B. So it's really cheap for the product, but very expensive in time. And that's one thing that you'll learn as you do online book arbitrage is when you do that, you're actually starting to buy your time back. So you start trading the money that you have to buy back your time. In other words, be more efficient with your time. In the beginning, obviously, if you're thrifting right now, it's a little bit harder to do that. But the first thing that you have to do if you're starting online book arbitrage is just figure out what your budget is. Now, the goal here with online book arbitrage is not for it to, completely destroy the way you live life. Like, obviously, we want to make sure that you can still pay rent, you can still pay your mortgage, that you can still pay for groceries. So you need to figure out how much money are you willing to invest, or how much money can you invest. So even if it doesn't work out, you're still gonna have the lights on, you're still going to be okay, paying your mortgage or your rent payment. And once you figure out how much money that is, what I would recommend doing is actually trying to allocate the spending over a period of time of at least 3 months. And the reason for that is I want you to think of online book arbitrage as something like a runway. So I actually just Googled a runway for a plane, and think of online book arbitrage like this. Right now you're stationary, you're just a plane sitting there ready to take off. And in order for you to eventually get off the ground, you actually need to build some momentum. And I think the easiest way to build momentum is to actually just start with building consistency, right? If you think about people who are very in shape, or people who become very good at something, it starts in sort of increments and it happens over just a long period of time. It just happens with consistency, right? If you look at somebody who's really in shape, really buff, it wasn't like they got in shape by doing it overnight. They literally just did this, month by month by month. And that's kind of what you need to do with online book arbitrage. So once you figured out how much money you have to invest with online book arbitrage, I would say divide that total by about 3 months. And again, this number is going to vary depending on where you're at. Like if you only have, let's say, $1,000, then that's really only about $300-ish to spend over, each month over a 3-month period, which is honestly not very much money to do online book arbitrage. But whatever that amount is, right? If you're wanting to get started with online book arbitrage, take that initial amount that you're willing to invest and divvy it up into increments of essentially 3 months. So let's just say you have $5,000 that you're willing to invest, then dedicate or allocate, like $1,600 or $1,700 for each of the 3 months to spend on books. And once you've allocated that by month, actually break it down by day so that you can actually have a daily book goal. Now, if you're really wanting to see some sort of momentum, I'd recommend at least 5 books per day. And the reason for that is if you're buying 5 books per day, that's about 35 books per week. That's enough for one shipment. In other words, if you can send 4 shipments a month over a 3-month period, you would have sent 12 shipments in, and that's enough for you to start seeing a little bit of momentum. That's enough for your plane to kind of start taking off the runway. Now, as far as getting a prep center, that certainly would help in terms of making sure that your shipments actually get there to Amazon probably more quickly than if you were to be the one prepping. If you're someone who hasn't sent any Amazon shipments, then I would actually recommend just going through the process of how to ship books to Amazon yourself. And I do have go-to lister tutorials and how to build shipments on my YouTube channel, so you can check that out. But the idea here is that you want to build consistency, right? If you think about, again, people who are very in shape, they actually go to the gym every single day. And that's what you're going to need to do here. You're going to need to buy books every single day. Now, again, I would recommend that you buy 5 books per day to start out. And again, you can target books at different price points. If you have more money, I guess you could go for higher price points. But if, let's say, you're really on a budget and you want to start with 5 books per day, you probably want to stay under $12 per book. And a productivity hack I have for you, this is actually something that I did in the beginning that really helped me, is I actually got just a little jar. Maybe this one had, pepper in it or salt in it at one point. But essentially just got a jar, and I got 5 coins. 4 of those are quarters, and one of those is a dollar coin. And what I would do every single day in the beginning was just put this jar right in front of my keyboard. So every day when I would wake up, I knew that, I need to fill this with these quarters. And again, your goal is 5 books a day. So if this is right in front of you, right, you have to essentially move a quarter into this jar every time, you were able to buy a book. So boom, we bought 1 book today, we bought 2 books a day, we bought 3 books a day, we bought 4 books a day. That's going to be really helpful. And then I would recommend having one really cool coin, one that stands out, like a dollar coin, for example. It's a special coin. Every single day, I want you to feel like there was one book that you snagged, that you got, that was so awesome, that you're excited about it. You're like, whoa, man, that book that I bought today, I'm gonna be dreaming about that book tonight. I'm gonna be thinking about that book tonight. That was an awesome book. And so that's your goal, is to try to find 5 books a day. Again, probably like under $10, under $12 if you're just starting out. And then try to find one book that you're just like, wow, I really do think with everything that I know right now, everything that Joji's taught me, that this is going to be an awesome book. And what you'll see is that if you can do this day in and day out over, the first 7 days or the first 14 days, over the first month, 2 months, or 3 months, if you start building that consistency, you're going to start to see results. Now, if you go to the gym for 5 days in a row, you're probably still not going to see any results. You're just going to be sore. And if you buy books, 5 books a day for the first 5 days, you're not going to see any results because none of those books have probably even made it to your house yet or made it to your prep center. But by week 2, by week 3, you'll start seeing some traction. You'll start seeing some of those books, get to your prep center, or you'll have received them. You'll be excited. You'll send those books in. And certainly by week 3, some of those books are actually going to be hitting the warehouse, right? If you work out for 3 weeks straight, you're going to start definitely noticing some results. And so again, the goal here is, if you have, divvied this up in 3 month increment or in 1 month increments for a total of 3 months, and you're buying, let's say, 5 books a day, you're definitely going to start seeing results. Now, the next major tip I have for you is right now, because you are limited in your capital, I would still highly recommend sourcing books the way that you normally source. So if you're going to library sales, if you're going to thrift stores, if you're doing local meetups, if you're buying textbooks from college students on college campuses, still do all that stuff. That's an amazing way to build capital. What's really important there is you're taking not very much money that you have, and you're able to probably get really high ROI on a lot of those books. And so I'd recommend doing that alongside this. You're kind of just adding online arbitrage, because again, remember, the end goal is to get to online book arbitrage, because you can do that any time of the day, anywhere on planet Earth, as long as you have internet access, and it's way more scalable, and you have infinite access to over 100 million books. So that's eventually the goal that you should get to. But again, you can't just be a plane flying high in the sky. You actually have to, you need a runway, you need to build momentum, you got to get yourself off. And so what I'd recommend is still source the way that you're normally sourcing. It's a great way to supplement, the money that you're making, and you can use even some of that money that's coming in to actually buy more books as well. Now, as far as subscriptions go, the only subscription that you need in the beginning is a Keepa subscription, which I believe costs around $20-ish per month. And the reason why that's the only thing you need is because you don't really have very much capital. You don't really have very much money right now, so you can't afford to be buying all these subscriptions to all these other softwares. Obviously at some point, bringing on subscriptions like a repricer or SellerAmp for tracking, or BookMine for easier book sourcing. With time, that all makes sense. But right now, it's kind of like we have a plane that's too heavy, that can't get off the ground, and we need to kind of get rid of everything that's not really super necessary in the beginning. Obviously, once you're somebody who's more established and you're selling multiple thousands of dollars every month, then all of a sudden a subscription to SellerAmp or Be Cool, BookMine doesn't really make much of a difference at all. But in the beginning, you got to be scrappy, and that means you just need to keep a subscription. That's the only thing that you need. And I would say that the number one thing that you should be focusing on is actually using Keepa deals. Okay, so the way that you would work on this with Keepa deals is essentially you'd go over to keepa.com, you'd click this little shopping bag icon on the top left, which is called deals. What I'd recommend is that you don't stay here in product boxes. This is going to make sourcing a lot more difficult for you. You're actually going to want to be in table view. Under the deal type, we're going to be looking for used books specifically. So click on that used feature there. And what I would say is look for books that have dropped in price just today. Those are while you will get tons and tons of results, a lot of them will be junk, right? So it's kind of similar to scanning at a thrift store or library sale. Like if you've scanned books, you know that the overwhelming majority of books are not books you want to buy, but a small percentage of them are actually really great buys. And that's kind of the same thing here with Keepa deals. So we'll look for books that have dropped in price over the last day. Now, as far as a drop percentage range, we'll just say that anything that's dropped by, let's say, and this could be an arbitrary amount, but like anything that's dropped by 30%, where, the drop was at least like $10, like this. And we want the current price range. Again, remember I told you that we're trying to buy about 5 books a day here. What that means is we should probably be looking for books that are under, let's say, $12 or $13. So we could move it to, let's say if we can go to, okay, we'll do $14. That's fine. Now for a sales rank, probably stay under like 1.5 million to start. We want books that are going to be moving a little bit more faster in the beginning. And then what we can do is sort here by the newest first. So the books that just recently dropped in price. Okay, and it looks like with these specific results, we have 819 results. And I guarantee you that there's going to be books in here that are going to be great books. Now, because again, you're at the beginning of your online book arbitrage journey, you have to remember that you're really trading or really sacrificing your time in order to save money, right? And so in this case, you're using Keepa deals. You're going to have to go through a lot of books to find good ones, since you are going to be wasting a lot of times not finding the best books. But at the same time, that's the limitation. That's where you're at right now, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone had to start from zero. That's how I started, so don't feel bad about that. Now, what you're going to do is obviously just read and look at Keepa graphs. And so you're going to look for books that have dropped in price, something similar to this. So you can see how this book was right at like $29 to $30, and it just dropped in price to $13. Regardless of whether or not this is a book we can buy, regardless of whether or not, we ran it through the Books Run counterfeit calculator, regardless of a bunch of other things. That's the sort of pattern you're looking for. We're looking for books that have held a pretty high use price, that have sales rank drops, and then today's price is significantly lower than that. Okay, and so this isn't going to be necessarily a sourcing video. This is just kind of what my advice is if you're starting online book arbitrage, but that's the sort of pattern that you're trying to find on books like this. Here's another great example of a book where you can see that the book looks or appears to have sold a few times in the $40 range. Even just recently, maybe a week ago, sold for $38. Now it's sitting down here at $6.43. So here's another example of a book that, again, if we opened it up a little bit, did a little bit more research to make sure that it was a good buy, is something or a pattern that you're looking for. Right underneath it, I also see another book that appears to be pretty good. We have Immoral Women. So it looks like we have a few sales here in the $40 range, and then just dropped down in price to $12.40. Now, again, one word of caution. Remember that the number of sales rank drops that you see will indicate kind of the velocity, the sales velocity of the book, how often it's selling. So for example, what you should know if you watch my videos is that this book sells way, way, way more than the other two that we just looked at. And so you have to make sure that your expectations for how quickly the books should sell, make sure that is in the back of your mind. For example, a book like this that has had 5 or 6 sales rank drops in the last 6 months is a book that's selling about once per month. That's like once every 30 days. That's not very much at all. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a bad book. It just means that you have to understand that when you're buying a book, in your mind, you should be thinking about how long is it going to take to sell that book. Okay, now my next major tip here is to start a leads list with Keepa alerts. So with the Keepa subscription, you can also start tracking products. And the reason why I would call this a leads list is because right now you don't have an inventory or a selection or selection of books that you've successfully purchased and sold that you had purchased on Amazon. And what that means is you don't have a replens list yet. So before you can get to a replens list, you actually need a leads list. Eventually, the end game or the end goal is to have just a replens list and not a leads list, because you've got to the point where you sold a bunch of books, thousands and thousands of books that you now have data on, that you know what a good buy price is and what a good selling price is. But up until you get to that point, you actually need a leads list. And so the easiest way to do that is just use Keepa alerts. So for example, let's take this book that we thought potentially could be good. Again, we didn't open it up or look at it like that, but let's just say that we came across a book that holds pretty good value and we want to track it. Like, let's say we think this book is going to sell for $40. Well, let's say we want to pick it up for basically a third to one half of what we think it should sell for. Well, what we can do is we could track the product. So right above the Keepa graph, there's a little button here called track product. We can go ahead and click that track product button. And for this particular book, if we wanted to track it for, let's say, $10 or $12 all in shipping, then all we would need to do is, essentially you'd be on the basic mode here, but if you want to include shipping costs, you could click on the advanced button and just say, hey, if this ever gets to $12 with shipping included in any of these conditions, then send me a notification. And so you click start tracking here, and you're going to see that I will be sent an email notification, a Telegram message. You can even set up a web push notification. What's really cool is that Keepa will allow you, so if you go back here to the bell icon called track, and you go to tracking overview, Keepa will allow you to track to up to 5,000 books at once. I guarantee you, if you set 5,000 Keepa alerts, you're going to be getting notified every single day. And so you can look at what some of your recent notifications were, which is going to be really awesome for you to start picking these books up in the future. For example, you can see I just got a Keepa alert 14 minutes ago for Managing Wildlife on Private Lands in Alabama. This is actually a seasonal book that tends to do well in January. It kind of hit my notification price here about half month ago, but I can now pick this book up and probably sell it in the $40 to $50 range. You can see over a long period of time, this has that sort of seasonality during that time. Not a crazy seasonal book, but it tends to sell a little bit better during that time and can sell for some really good money. Now, another tip that I would recommend is to utilize Keepa Product Finder. And again, this isn't necessarily a sourcing video, right? I've got tons of videos on my YouTube channel about how to use Keepa Product Finder. So you can just type in Joji Davenport, Keepa Product Finder, but also start exploring with Keepa Product Finder. It's going to be a sandbox for you to find awesome deals, awesome books that you can buy here on Amazon and resell on Amazon for profit. Now, remember that I had advice for you that all you need is Keepa to get started. You need a tool that costs you $20 a month. Actually, is probably less than whatever your scanning app is if you're actually going to library sales and thrift stores. That's the only thing that you need to get started. But you're like, Joji, what about a repricer? How am I going to do that? Well, you can actually just use Amazon's automated repricer, which is free to use and very, very easy to set up. And my good friend Victor Gallegos and I actually made a video about that, free repricer on the BookMine YouTube channel. So you can just type in BookMine and go to BookMine. If you like the content here, you're definitely gonna love the content there, so you might as well subscribe so you can also watch those videos. But scroll down, a couple months ago, we built this as part of the BookMine Academy, or we filmed this as part of the BookMine Academy. It's called How to Set Up Amazon's Free Automated Repricer. So make sure you go and do that, because you definitely are going to want to have your books repriced, because other people have reprices. They'll be changing prices when you do. And so if you want to remain competitive, you're also going to need a repricer, and this one's free. It obviously has some limitations, but considering that it's free, it does an amazing job. And so my last words of advice here is that if you're starting online book arbitrage, just remember that it's not an overnight, get rich quick scheme. It is something that, there's really not very many secrets to, other than all you need to do is buy undervalued books, and you need to buy a lot of them, but you need to do it consistently. There's not really any secret to getting buff. There's not really any secret to getting in shape. It's pretty obvious what you need to do. You just need a consistent schedule where you show up to the gym 3 times or 4 times a week, and you do that over a long period of time. If you do that in anything in life, you're going to see some success. And so my advice here is that if you want to do online book arbitrage, see if you can do this. A 3-month period of time where you've taken however much money that you have out there that you're willing to invest, break it up into thirds, and then basically try to buy around 5 books a day. If you can do that over a 3-month period of time, I guarantee you that you're going to be successful long term, because I'm essentially saying, hey, try to show up to the gym every single day for 3 months. If you get to that three-month period, you're probably going to last and be someone who's very successful. So hope you all found this video helpful. I really hope that one day, you guys reach out to me, ask me any questions, and I really hope that you find success with online book arbitrage. I'm here to help support you. That's my goal. And so let me know if you have any other ideas or suggestions for videos, but really enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.